other things like the machine learning at an high level, and also we discussed about deep learning, computer vision, and the other things like data analytics. Those kind of things we discussed it, and also we discussed about what exactly machine learning algorithm is all about, how does it works, right? So the formal definition for the machine learning algorithm is this one. So, but if you look at the internet, a lot of definitions are floating around. Okay, and this is the simple one by Stanford. Machine learning is the science of getting computers to act without being explicitly programmed. Okay, but if you look at this definition, machine learning is the science of getting computers to learn and act like humans do and improve their learning over time in autonomous fashion by feeding them data and information in the form of observations and real world interactions. When I read this, right, um, so another analogy which comes to my mind, something like car driving. Let's say you don't know how to drive a car. You called the driving school person, and he visited your house, and he is telling you very clearly, sir, 7 days training will be there, or 10 days training will be there, and first 5 days I'll be teaching you, and sixth day onwards you need to drive. So what you do is, in this case, right, you are like machine learning algorithm, okay, and the driver is like a data. He trains you while he drives. Whenever he approaches the traffic light, he teaches you whenever the amber light comes, you need to slow down. You prepare to stop your vehicle. Likewise, he teaches all the traffic rules, everything, okay, and also he teaches you, when to apply brake, how to use the clutch, right? He teaches you everything, okay, right from how to start the car to till stop the car. And even in the case of heavy traffic, right, moderately congested, heavily congested, less congested area also, he shows you how to drive the car, how to manage in case somebody crosses the road out of mind. Everything he teaches you, everything is fine. You are simply watching him, not, and also his actions, you are watching him. You are like a machine learning algorithm. Your brain is fed with all these data, whatever you watch, whatever you get it from his talks, right? Everything goes to your brain. And the sixth day, right, he is sitting in the passenger seat and you are sitting in the driver's seat. Okay, now he asks you to drive the car. Will you drive the car the very first day? You can drive, but there will be some kind of hiccups, right? Correct. So initially you will have some kind of hiccups, and you will have some kind of fear. Will I drive correctly or not? If I make mistake, yeah, I might tend to hit someone, right? You will have some fear, but still you are. But what he does is, the first day he takes you to the less congested street. Okay, nobody used to come. Hardly few cattle can come and few people can come. Right, with less congested area. Very first day when you put there, you are comfortable. You have more confidence. Now nobody is there. Thank God. You drive well. The sixth day, you started driving the car. Somehow, you are able to drive, right? But still, you are making sway. So you are going left side, right side, a little bit, but still you are not able to handle the steering correctly, right? When it comes to brake, you are fine, and when it comes to managing or the steering, right, you are still forcing little problem. And then the seventh day, eighth day, you develop confidence, and slowly he puts you in the moderately congested street, right? So the eighth day, you are developed confidence, and you are able to drive well. Even if there is any hassle, you are able to manage it. Ninth day, you develop more confident, and 10th day is putting in the heavily congested road, but still you make little mistake, By making the mistake, you are learning it. Oh, I'm not supposed to do this mistake. I'm not supposed to, rely on the turn light put by the auto driver. It learns our people's mindset also. Actually, the auto driver put the turn light on the left side, but his head is facing on the right side of the road. That means he is turning on the right, not on the left. In addition to the light, you have to watch the people's body language also in India, right? So by seeing that, everything goes to your mind. Okay, amen. So good, good. This guy, though he put his traffic light, the turn light on the left side, but his head is watching on the right side. So then, most likely, he will be turning on the right, not on the left, or he might turn either left or right. So we need to be prepared. Better let us not overtake this guy at any cost. These are the lessons. It goes to your mind. Now the same analogy you applied here. Machine learning is the science of getting computers to learn and act like humans do. So you are like a machine learning algorithm. So you act like a human, okay, with the data, whatever the data you learned, right? With that data, you are supposed to act like a human brain, okay, and to improve their learning over time. Learning over time. That is the reason why I gave you this example: less congested area, moderately congested area, and a heavily congested area. The same way machine learning algorithm also works. You train the algorithm with though you train your machine learning model with the historical data, right? Let's say this is your machine learning model. Though you train this machine learning model with the historical data, with more and more data over a period of time, the algorithm can make accurate prediction. It will improve its prediction quality gradually, right, by feeding them data and information in the form of observation and real world interactions. So that is what this definition might be confusing, or you might find it difficult to understand this one. Okay, simple. As I told you, the idea of the machine learning algorithm is to mimic the human's brain, be it a computer or self-driving car, right? Once you implement the machine learning algorithm, it should act like a human brain. It should take decision everything like a human, right? And take the classic example, self-driving car. Your machine learning, you trained your machine learning algorithm with millions and millions of data. Now the car is driving, okay, but still, probably 1 year or 2 year, when the car drives with the help of the sensor data or the machine learning algorithm, but still, right, with driving the car over a period of time, it gains a lot of experience. Same thing, human also, right? When you drive the car, initially, though you get the driving license, everything, first 1 or 2 months, you will have some kind of, you might tend to make small mistakes, and you will have some kind of fear. After 2 months or 3 months, you have a lot of confidence. You don't need a driver. You say, right, no, I can drive my car from Chennai to Bangalore. I can drive the car on my own. I don't need a driver at all. You will develop more confidence because of the experience. As the experience increases, the confidence level comes. The same way, when you feed more and more data, when the system learns over a period of time with more data, the prediction accuracy will be good. So that is the whole idea of the machine learning algorithm. And in the case of machine learning algorithm, there are 4 types are there. One is supervised machine learning, and unsupervised and semi-supervised, and finally reinforcement machine learning algorithm. So we'll start with understanding what is supervised machine learning algorithm. So when it comes to supervised machine learning algorithm, right, you need to train the algorithm with both the input as well as the output. Here the output is nothing but the label. Instead of saying output variable, we say label. It's a very simple example. Please concentrate, okay? Let's take for example, as a kid, how we learned, this is elephant, this is giraffe. Someone taught us, our teacher, or by talking to our friends, okay, or from our parents, we learned this one, right? Our parents taught us, hey, this is elephant. They showed the toy, and also they they wrote the name of this one in a paper, and they say, hey, this is giraffe, right? So they gave us input, and also they gave us the output also, right? So that is also the reason why this is called supervised machine learning algorithm, because in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, we are supervised or we are trained by the historical data with the help of both the input output label. So in the case of machine learning, in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, the machine learning algorithm has to be trained with both the input as well as the output variables upfront. See, what is the difference between the traditional programming and supervised, and then the machine learning algorithm? What is the difference between the traditional programming and this one? In the case of traditional programming, what we do is, let's say our manager used to give us some data, right? They used to give us some data, and we are the programmer, right? So we are writing a program, and then what we do is our program will read this data and produce some output. Maybe our manager wants us to generate some report. Okay, in this report you should have charts and dashboard and or some table data, everything should be there, right? So this our report will be a processed one. These are raw data. You are using your program to process this data, and then you are producing the output. So this is what I showed you as part of Pandas data analysis, right? We took the sales data, and then we processed the data by performing some kind of aggregation, and we plotted some charts. We used a tree map and so on. And also some tabular data also. Pivoting. You remember pivot table also I showed you. Country wise, category wise, product wise, what is the sales. Fine. So this is what we have been doing it traditionally. This is what traditionally we have been doing it as a programmer. But when it comes to machine learning algorithm, especially the supervised machine learning algorithm, see, this is my input data, right? Input data. With this input data, using my programming logic, I transform this input data into output data as required, as per the format given by my manager. So with the given input, we produce the output. But when it comes to machine learning algorithm, you need to tell the algorithm upfront what is the input and what is the output. Upfront, you need to tell it. The algorithm has an intelligence to learn the pattern from these input and output variables, and then it can tell us what logic has been used here. Okay, what logic has been, or what kind of pattern is used here. What kind of pattern is used in this data, it can automatically learn it. See, in this case, this is a whole training process, right? Inside the box, right? We could see that this kid got trained with the help of both the input and output label. But if you just show the toy alone or the image alone, that the kid cannot remember it, right? So along with this, you told this is if this shape is there, then this is elephant. If this is there, then this is giraffe. The kid is not just storing the image just like that, okay? While storing it, it stores the pattern also. And tomorrow, right? So now the kid has been taught. So with these two images, right? So if the image is something like that, then this is elephant, this is giraffe. And if you show some other image like this one, right? Your kid can tell based on the learnings from the input and output, it can tell correctly or classify correctly this is elephant, right? So the elephant. So now what happens, let's say the elephant, see here in this case the elephant doesn't have any tusk, right? Here it has tusk in it, right? Tusk in it. So what happens, initially it will have some hiccups, right? So when you keep shows more and more, instead of showing one image elephant, right, show different images of the elephant, right, a small, bigger size, and again different parts of different part of the continents, elephants. In the African elephant shape is different, right? If you show all kind of elephant, right, the baby elephant and bigger elephant, everything, if you show it, the kids can tell very clearly. Yes, even if you show any type of elephant, it can tell. So, but with this limited knowledge, it can make a guesswork and say this is elephant. Somehow it can tell. Since the task is not there here, the machine learning algorithms can also make some mistake, because you did not show sufficient amount of data to this machine learning algorithm. So with more number of experiences or data, the algorithm can predict with higher accuracy. So had you shown an elephant with the tusk also, right? Now the kid can tell instantly, hey, this is elephant. Or there could be chances like human, even the machine learning algorithm can also make misclassification, right? It can do some kind of misclassification. Instead of saying elephant, it can say something else. So right, it can make some mistakes. So that is the reason why when you train the algorithm with more number of data, the prediction accuracy will improve over a period of time, right? So when you keep showing the data more and more over a period of time, the accuracy also increases. In the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, remember, you need to have in your historical data both the input as well as the output. Output is nothing but label. You need to have the labeled data. The supervised machine learning algorithm should have the labeled data in it. Okay? Let's look at another example. The goal of the computer is to learn a general formula which maps input into outputs. In the case of arithmetic, right? So look at here. So 2 plus 2 into question mark. But see, if the input is something like this, then the output is this one. If the input is like this, if the input is like, the output is like this. So here, what happens is, right, what value should come here in order to get 6 here? Oh, sorry, there is a mistake here. Yeah, sorry, 2, right? Yeah, 2 into 2, 4. 4 plus 2 is 6, right? 2 into 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7. 2 into 2 is 4 plus 4 is 8. Here 2 should come here, right? 2 should come here. So you gave the input as well as the output. The algorithm, what it does is it maps both the input and output. With that, it tries to find out the general formula or the pattern, the hidden pattern from this one, right? So here a plus b into 2. Whatever value you use it after plus sign, right? You need to multiply that by 2. So that is what has been done here, right? It automatically deducts the logic. See, you remember in the case of traditional programming, we are given the data set and our manager told us what logic to be used in order to transform the input data into required output format. But here, it tells us the logic automatically. We don't need our manager to tell the business logic. It automatically find out the pattern in this data set and it tells, hey, this is the pattern is used. Right? This is the pattern is used. That is how the supervised machine learning algorithm works. But simple thing, what you need to remember is, in the case of when it comes to supervised machine learning algorithm, you need to have the labeled data. Without labeled data, you cannot train your or build your machine learning model, supervised machine learning model. So what are all the types of supervised machine learning models are there? You have something called linear regression and linear regression, and you have something else called logistic regression. Sorry, it is correct. Logistic regression and decision tree. Likewise, there are set of other algorithms are available. Okay, a lot of algorithms are available. to solve the supervised machine learning problem. Right? These are all called your supervised machine learning algorithm. Okay, but in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, you need to teach the algorithm upfront the input as well as the output. The data set should be labeled. Okay, the target variable, it is also called as a target variable, right? The output is also called as a target variable. The target or output variable is also called as a labeled data. You need to label this data, otherwise you cannot teach this algorithm. That is the reason why we call it a supervised machine learning algorithm. Why we call it is a supervised machine learning algorithm? We teach the algorithm what is the expected output, right? What is the expected output? For example, we taught this kid, if this is there, then this is element. If this is there, this is there. And when I show this one, the kid should, or the algorithm has to tell correctly or predict, hey, this is elephant. Or algorithm has to assume that the kid is nothing but ML, machine learning algorithm, right? So you taught the algorithm with both the input and output or the labeled data. And when you show a new image to this algorithm based on the learnings from the historical data, it should predict correctly elephant. So that is because here we were supervising the machine learning algorithm and we knew very well what is expected. The expected outcome is either elephant or it should be giraffe. We know what we are going to predict when it comes to supervised machine learning algorithm. Fine, we have something else called unsupervised machine learning algorithm. When it comes to unsupervised machine learning algorithm, you don't have to have the labeled data set. You don't have to have the labeled data set. In real world, we don't get the labeled data set, right? We need to manually label the data set. Look here, in this case, you put 6, 7, 8, right? How did you put 6, 7, 8 here? How did you put this? And what is the basis for this? 2 plus 2 into, again, there is some rule, right? So you need to, let's say you joined with the company as a data scientist, and the employers, from the employer side, there is no data scientist available, and you are the only data scientist, but they don't know the ABCs of data science. Okay, and you are going to solve a supervised machine learning problem. For that, you collect all the input variable like age and income and marital status. All these information you are collecting it. That is your input variables, right? And the output variable, the labeled output variable, you need to derive it, right? So, but they do not know, they cannot tell customer, but you need to check with them the logic for that. For example, in the case of the defaulters, loan defaulters, right? So let's say you have an input variable called age, income, and marital status, number of children, or any pre-existing loan, or the CIBIL rating, something like that. Okay, and then you have a labeled output, labeled data. So in this column, you don't have any data for this. Okay, let's say the age, everything you collected from the source system, the banking data is available, you collected it, the historical data. How will you flag each and every customer's instance as whether the customer is a defaulter or non-defaulter? How will you put n, n, y, n? You need to write some logic, right? You need to understand the business logic. Based on the business logic, you derive this, the labeled output. Let us not get into this at this point. Let's say you are lucky, very first day you joined a company as a data scientist, they gave you both these are all called your input variables. Input, and this is a labeled output also given by your employer. You are lucky. You don't have to worry about how to derive this. Everything has been given upfront. But in real world, you will not get like this, right? Most of the time, you will not get like this. Okay. So in that case, how can you train your machine learning algorithm? right? So if you don't have the labeled data, the unsupervised machine learning algorithm comes for our rescue. This unsupervised machine learning algorithm itself deducts the pattern automatically from the given data, unlabeled data. It self deducts the pattern from this given data. So if you have the labeled data, then you don't have to use the unsupervised machine learning algorithm. But you don't have the labeled data. Don't worry, we have something called unsupervised machine learning algorithm is available. It has the intelligence to self deduct the pattern on its own in the case of unlabeled data. Okay, so what is the example for that? What are the applications of unsupervised machine learning algorithm? So in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, one of the applications are like whether the customer is, we need to predict, the algorithm has to predict whether the customer, with the given customer's attributes or properties, whether the customer is going to default or not. That is what we are going to predict in the case of supervised machine. But in the case of unsupervised machine learning algorithm, we have the unlabeled data with us, but we don't know what we are going to predict here. We don't know what we are going to predict, right? So in that kind of situation, the unsupervised machine learning algorithm, right? So that is where that is how the unsupervised machine learning algorithm, it automatically finds the pattern in this one, and then, for example, in this case, it tells us is so and so customers, or it creates some kind of cluster. Cluster is nothing but a group. So this is high income group people, and these are all the medium income group people. This is low income group people. It automatically, we have something called a clustering algorithm is available, which is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm. All you need to do is just throw all the relevant attributes or columns to your algorithm, the clustering algorithm. It automatically deducts the pattern in it. Hey, so and so customers are falling in the medium income group, and or so and so customers are falling in the medium spend, high spend, low spend bucket or group or cluster. So with this, what I can do is I can decide whom I should target. So let's say high income group or high spend customers, I have 10,000 customers are there. 10,000 customers are medium customers, or 20,000 customers, or low income customers are close to 50,000 are there. And we have launched a new product which is a very expensive product that can be afforded only by the high income group people. So in that case, if I have to launch a campaign, or in simple term, if I have to send the brochure or catalogs related to my high expensive newly launched product, I don't have to send it to the entire customers at base. Instead, I can send it only to the high income group people. I know very well only this, high income group people, high spenders, can only those people can buy it, right? So in that case, my effort will be less. Instead of sending the catalogs to 1 million customers, only send it to 10,000 people. My time saved, money saved, and also the chances are high that the high income group people can respond to my campaign. This is one of the applications of unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Apart from this, there are algorithms like association rules. Association rule. So association rule helps us to find out, in the case of retail data, when the customer buy product A, what is the other product which they tend to buy it more likely. The co-occurrence of the products. Whenever the customer buys product A, he is more likely to purchase product B also. So for example, a customer whenever he buys butter, either he buys jam, or he buys egg, or he buys egg, or he buys egg or what else, jam, egg and butter, right? So he tends to buy butter also. So most frequently when you look at the data set, especially when you use association rule related algorithm, it tells you or it self detects. Okay, something wrong here. It tells us, right, when you look at this data, right, when you use the association rule from, on your retail data, you could see that most of the customers, right, most of the customers or most of the transactions, you could see that whenever the customers buy butter, they tend to buy jam or butter along with this. There is a co-occurrence. There is a pattern here. When the customer purchases butter, they are more likely to purchase the jam and butter. Majority of the customers transactions, if you see, this is what the kind of co-occurrence of products happening there. This is the pattern we could see that. So by seeing that, what you can do? So what you can do is in your retail shop, you can keep the jam and butter along with, sorry, this is a bread, okay, this is a bread, right? So you keep the jam and butter along with the bread in your store. So this will improve the customer's experience. Whenever they walk into your mall, let's say, if you walk into in US and all, right, the mall size are very, very big. Especially Walmart and all, if you go inside, I don't know how many of you went there. It's a very big mall, okay. But running one place to another place to pick up bread, butter and all, painful experience, right? If you keep all the relevant items together in a single place, that can improve the customer experience, and at the same time you are tempting the customer to spend more. Supposing right, if you keep the egg also, people, the non-vegetarians, right, when they see egg also along with the bread, though they wanted to buy butter alone with the intention of walking into the shop, they wanted to buy only the bread and butter, but seeing the egg, right, they change their mindset. Okay, in addition, let me also buy this, and there is an offer also going on for the egg, better let me buy this one also, right? You are tempting the customers to spend more, and at the same time you are keeping the relevant items together in your stores, right? In the specific shelf, if you keep all these items together, it will improve their experience, right? Improving the customer's experience is the key for increase in the sales, right? The customer satisfaction should be more, only then they will revisit your shop more frequently. This is one of the applications of unsupervised machine learning algorithm. One is association rule, other one is k-means clustering. In the case of marketing, they employ this kind of strategy, right? So to find out, to optimize their spend. We don't want to spend too much of money on the marketing. In that case, by grouping the or creating the cluster, you are able to find out the high potential customers or high spenders quickly. With that, if you can target only the specific group of people, so what will happen? The chances of the response or the chance of purchase or the conversion is very high. So this is what the unsupervised machine learning algorithm is all about. And we have something else called PCA, is also falls under unsupervised machine learning algorithm, principal component analysis, using which we can reduce the dimensionality. We can reduce the dimensions, or dimensional reduction technique. The PCA is the dimensional reduction technique. What is dimensional reduction technique? Supposing in my data set I have I have more number of columns are there, more variables are there. So 150 variables are there. Okay, I don't need all these 150 variables to train my model. It is a overkill. So I need to find out which variables are more relevant to my model. Which variable should I knock out from this one? So what you do is you can rely on, in that case, PCA is very much helpful to identify and suggest as which all features you can keep in your model, which features you can knock out. Okay. So PCA also falls under unsupervised machine learning algorithm, and we have something else called market basket analysis. Okay, that is also market basket is also right. So they use the association rule only. Okay, so we will take a deep dive on this one when I cover unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Hope you understood what is supervised machine learning algorithm, right? The fundamental idea of the machine learning algorithm is to make predictions like how a human can think, okay, or think, and how they can make decisions, right? The same way we are teaching the algorithm also with the help of the past data. Okay, see, as a human we use experiences, but how come the machine learning algorithm can use experience? Instead of experience, it uses the data, historical data. With the historical data, when you train your algorithm, especially when you train with more number of observations, the prediction accuracy improves over a period of time, okay, without explicitly writing any program. So that is what the definition. Look here, without being explicitly programmed. See, all the algorithms are readily available, plain vanilla. You need to tell which one is which column, what the column name for the input variables, and then the labeled output variable. You need to tell it. That's all. You need to specify the column name to your algorithm. That is enough. For the algorithm, you don't have to write program. It is available as a function or method. Okay. So the difference between supervised and unsupervised is, in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, you need to train your model with the labeled data. When it comes to unsupervised machine learning algorithm, you don't have to have the labeled output data, okay, from the high level, okay. And we have something else called semi-supervised machine learning algorithm, and also we have something else called the reinforcement learning. So this is the algorithm is used in the case of self-driving car, right? They use this algorithm. They implemented this algorithm. How this algorithm work is, right? Just like how a human learn from a mistake by trial and error. Okay, the reinforcement learning is also works the same way, right? So in the case of reinforcement learning, there is an agent which basically lets you know a baby, okay, a small baby is there, right? A small baby is there, and you kept some toys, soft toys, a ball, and toys, everything on a table, okay, on a table. The kid has to, right, crawl, and slowly it has to go to this place in order to pick up this one. This is something like reward. When the kid goes to this place and pick up the soft toy or the ball, whichever things that the kid likes from this place, right? If that goes and picks up, is called your reward. So in this case, the kid is nothing but an agent, right? So we have an agent, basically, in this case, the baby, right? So when it it has to identify the path where it doesn't have any hurdles, right? Where it doesn't have any hurdles. In that case, the kid can get rewards. The same way the reinforcement learning algorithm is also working, right? In the case of reinforcement algorithm, let's say in this case the kid, right? The kid is nothing but an agent. The agent decides what actions to take in order to perform a given task in the absence of training data set. It is bound to learn from its experience itself. Okay, the reinforcement learning is all about an agent who is put in an unknown environment, right? He is going to use the hit and trial method in order to figure out the environment and then come up with an outcome. It is basically reward and punishment. Supposing if the kid encounters any hassles, right, on the en route to this place, right, it is punished. The kids get punished. So reward and punishment, right? So like how a human, right, the grown-up people, right, we learn from a mistake by trial and error. The kid also, right? So when it encounters any hurdle, it's while crawling or while making a baby walk, when it hits something like that, it falls and it cries. It is not getting the reward, right? So in that kind of situation, the kid is learning, oh, okay, so I don't want to do this mistake here, and trying to maximize the reward as much as possible. That is the whole objective of the agent, okay? So by making the trial and error, right, the mistakes by it learns from a mistake by trial and error, and then it will improve over a period of time. So the applications of this one is the classic AlphaGo. AlphaGo is one of the company. They developed a chess game. Okay, it is powered by artificial intelligence. Even the grand the chess master, right? It defeated the grand what is his name? The chess grandmaster Gary Kasparov. Even this AlphaGo defeated Gary Kasparov himself. Okay, so when it makes each move, right, so it goes by the reward and punishment. If I make the pawn, if I move the pawn from here to here, so what is going to happen if I move this one? So to make one move, the AlphaGo, right, it takes million decisions on the fly in a matter of seconds. So that is how the reinforcement learning algorithm works. And we have something else called semi-supervised machine learning algorithm, which we'll discuss it later. Okay, it is a hybrid of both supervised as well as unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Okay, anyhow, I don't want you to talk each and everything in detail. You will feel overwhelmed. Okay, so now let us try to understand certain terminologies or jargons related to machine learning algorithms. So look at this data set. What kind of data set is that? What kind of data set? It's a claim, data set. Insurance, auto claim, right? Auto insurance claim data. Auto insurance claim data. So policy number, policy holder name, and age of vehicle, and vehicle price, and make of the vehicle, and accident area, and is it fraud or not? Whether the accident took place intentionally or unintentionally, or accidentally it happened, right? Some people, when they find their vehicle is when the age of the vehicle goes high, right? So they wanted to replace certain things. Since they have insurance coverage, they go and hit it, and then they will go for claim. Hey, my door has gone, or something went wrong. You need to, pay the claim for this, right? So again, they don't pay it just like that. The underwriter will, evaluate. They go to the spot and they'll check, and they require more proof. So this is the auto insurance claim data. Okay, these are the input variables: policy number, policy holder name, age of vehicle. This is also called as input variable, or it is called as independent variables. Independent variables or predictor variables. In general, we call that as a features. In machine learning algorithm, right, in the machine learning world, we never say columns or variables. Instead, we say features. If somebody says features, which is nothing but the input variables, and this is your labeled output variable, right? The labeled output variable. It is also called as a response variable, or target variable, or output variable, dependent variable. Different people use different jargons. At the time of interview, you are not supposed to get confused, or at the time of having any code walkthrough or any discussion with your peers in USA or somewhere, right? You are not supposed to get stuck up. That's the reason why I put all the equivalent terms here. So is fraud is nothing but labeled variable, and it is also called as a response or target variable, or it is also called as output variable, dependent variable, or in simple term you remember independent variable and dependent variable. So how do you decide whether a claim is a fraudulent claim or a non-fraudulent claim, right? So this column is depending on all these features, like what is the age of the vehicle, and vehicle price, and make, and accident area, and whether the driver is drunk or not at the time of driving, right? So all these details will drive this one, right? So hence this is a dependent variable, because this dependent variable is depending on all these variables. And again, policy number also, right? Because based on the policy only, they can decide how much you are eligible for the claim. If it is genuine, if your claim is genuine, they are supposed to approve it. How much they can approve it? They blindly let you know the sum assured is 1 lakh or 2.5 lakhs, okay? But blindly they don't, and again, the vehicle price also they will see, the age of the vehicle, many factors they'll see, and then they will decide or determine how much claim you are eligible for it, how much they can approve it. So in simple term, so these are all called as independent variable. This is called your dependent variable, and it is also called as a predictor variables. Predictor variables, and this is called your what you wanted to predict, whether it is a fraudulent claim or non-fraudulent. This is what you wanted to predict. But in this case, you have both input as well as the labeled output. This is your labeled output, right? Labeled output variable or labeled data. Labeled output variable. You need to tell the algorithm what is the input and output. That is what I discussed. Look here. So you need to tell both the input and output upfront to your algorithm, right? So the same thing, the input or in this case, right, the input is not a single image, right? Here we have multiple columns or more than one column. The previous example I put only one image there in the input, right? But you can have multiple input variables. You will be having multiple variables in the case of real world scenarios, and you have one labeled output variable. Only one labeled output variable will be there. So this is since you have the labeled output variable, you can train this. You can train a supervised machine learning algorithm. So remember that features are nothing but the input variables, label, features and label. So can you tell me your features? They will ask you. So can you tell me what are the features that you use it? Which is nothing but they are asking about the input variable that you use it in your model. And can you tell me your labeled variable? So labeled output variable. So is fraud. That is my labeled output variable. Features, I used 6 features in this case. You need to tell that way, okay? In supervised machine learning algorithm also, so I told you at the high level, there are 4 types of machine learning algorithm. One is supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, reinforcement learning. Within the supervised machine learning algorithm itself, there are 2 categories are there at a high level. One is regression, other one is classification. Within classification, there are 3 categories are there. One is binary classification, multi-class classification, multi-label classification. Okay? Okay, we will start with understanding the classification problem. See, there are 2 types of problem. One is at a high level regression problem or classification problem. Instead of saying 2 categories like a regression and classification, regression problem, and we have something called classification problem. There are 2 types of problems at a high level as part of your supervised machine learning. Please remember, this is very, very important. So what is classification problem? We will start with understanding what is classification problem. Same thing, whatever I discussed, the same data set, right? The car auto insurance data I took it. So this is my categorical variable, right? This variable is a categorical variable, and as per the terminology, this is a labeled output variable, and these are all my features. It is also called as an independent variable. This is called your dependent variable. So here we are predicting this categorical variable. We are predicting the categorical response value or variable. So if somebody is asking you what is a classification problem, the simple answer is predicting the categorical response value. See, in this case, your model has to predict and say. So because when the customer they filled the claim application form. Let's online, they filled the application form. Different customers across city, across geography, they filled the claim application because they met with an accident and they are promptly paying the premium also. Okay, and they met with an accident, right? They filled this data, but you don't have this data. Your model has to predict. So the classification problem in this case is predict the category, whether this claim application is genuine or not genuine. That is yes or no. Yes means it is a genuine. No means it is not a genuine claim. Your algorithm has to predict yes or no. Karthik, any questions here? Right? So your algorithm has to predict what? Yes or no. Whether this predict or yes or no. Okay? So to predict the categorical response value like yes or no, we call that as a classification problem. Very simple, isn't it? And binary class classification. So I discussed about the classification problem at a high level, right? So to predict the categorical response value, whether yes or no, my algorithm has to, if I throw the data to an algorithm, supervised machine learning algorithm, it has to predict or it has to assign the or predict the class labels like yes or no. That's all. But if I have only yes or no in my target variable, I call that as a binary class classification. We know very well what the term binary, right? During school time also we studied. Binary is 0 or 1, right? So either yes or no, predicting only the categorical variable which has only the yes or no kind of thing, right? Right? So that is called binary class classification problem. And also we have something called multi-class classification problem. What if I have more than 2 classes in my target outcome variable? One second, my system is hanging. Oh, this is the PowerPoint, right? Let me enter. Sometimes some crazy thing happens. So to predict the target response value like yes or no, we call that as a classification problem. If the predicted outcome is yes or no only, that is called binary classification problem. If I have more than 2 classes, see, this is what binary classification, multi-class classification problem we are going to see now. So this is the one. Let's say you have images, you have bunch of images which has all these fruits in it. Okay. Let's say your customer, the day one when you join the company, they gave you all these images and they want you to classify which all images are belong to which category. So this one is apple. By seeing this is an orange. What about this one? What about this one? What about this one? Though these two are different, having different color, it is falls under the same category. Peers, right? This is called peers. This is also peers. This is also peers. So in this case, how many categories are there? How many classes are in this fruit? I think this one also peers, right? 1, 2, 3. And you have apple, right? To 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 4 classes are there. Instead of 2 classes, here we have more than 2 classes are there. Or more than 2 categories are there. Hence it is called multi-class classification problem. If I throw all these images to my algorithm, it has to correctly assign the predicted label like it is a pears, it is an orange, it is an apple. It has to predict the or assign the label correctly, like avocado or pears. Yeah, this is a pears. And even if I put this image, right, yeah, this is it has to assign the label, right? It has to assign the label as pears, it has to assign the label as orange, it has to assign the label as apple. In this case, how many categories are there in the label? More than 2 categories are there. Are you with me or not? Okay, what we will do is we will take, can we take a break?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. So then what we will do is we will take 8 minutes break, okay? Uh, right, so 9:15 we will continue, okay?
Oh,
Fine,
perfect.
yeah, we'll take small break so that you will feel relaxed. Okay, I am back now. I guess all of you are available, right?
Yes, Satya.
Right, okay, fine. See, this is what a multi-class classification, binary class classification problem. In the case of binary class classification, the target variable will have only 2 classes. It need not to be yes or no, it can be something else also, but end of the day it should have only 2 values in it, okay, 2 exclusive values in it, okay. But when it comes to multi-class classification, you will have one of more than 2 classes to be predicted, right? So for example, in this case, the apple, and the algorithm has to predict the label as orange here, and it has to assign the predicted label as pears, something, pears, apples, right? So since it has more than 2 classes in it, we call that as a multi-class classification problem. It is a very simple one. The next one is multi-label classification problem. Multi-label classification. For the classic example is this one. Directly jump into the example. So when Harry met Sally, this is the movie name. This is a comedy cum romance movie. Comedy cum romance movie. Okay. So we cannot say this movie is a comedy movie alone, right? So it is a romance also. This movie has romance also. So you have 2 labels here, label 1 and label 2. Right? And supposing you have some image, in that image you might tend to have more than one object also, isn't it? For example, bicycle, person, peers. A single image has 3 different objects in it, right? In that kind of use case also, we will end up with solving multi-label classification. Your algorithm has to predict more than one label for a given instance, or for a specific, in this case the movie, right? If you show this movie to your algorithm, since your algorithm already trained on the historical data, it should assign more than one label to this one, right? Comedy and romance, something like this. If it is an action movie, right? If it is an action movie, label 1, and label 2, it is an action come romance movie, right? So action or fighting, right? So action, and the action movies will have fighting, more number of fightings. So some kind of labels, right? More than one, the appropriate label has to be predicted by the algorithm automatically, because you are training your algorithm with the historical data. Since your algorithm already trained on both the input and the label output very well, when you show any movie name, it should automatically predict or assign the label. Oh, this is the comedy and this is the romance. Okay. So, right, we will see to that how it assigns all this label later. At this moment, you might be wondering, see, this movie name itself, how can my algorithm predict comedy and romance? My algorithm just a mathematical algorithm. How can? So again, you have other attributes like, whether how many number of. Mm, 1 second. 1 second. Hello. Okay, okay, I'll call you back. Okay. So this is the one, right? So multi-class level. So you might be wondering that one. How come with the movie? So, though I train my model with the historical data, for new movie, the movie name will be different, right? For the new movie, the movie name will be different with the movie name itself. So that is the reason why we need some more attributes also. Number of fights in a movie, number of songs in a movie, right? So no fights. In the case of comedy movie, the number of fights will be zero in that column. You have another column like the number of jokes in that movie, jokes and romance, right? These columns you will have some values in it. More romance and romantic scenes and more comedies. That is called, right? If you have a movie with that kind of thing, right? Even for when Harry met Sally, you need to have the input variable, or you need to have additional data like number of fights, number of romantic scene, and number of comedy, something like that. Okay, the more the fight column has zero in it, and comedy has more, and romance also more, right? So based on which the algorithm can predict, oh, this movie is comedy cum romance movie, something like that. Okay, anyhow, we will see it with different use cases a later point in time. So far we discussed about what is a classification problem. At an high level, in the case of supervised machine learning, there are two problems we will be solving it majority of the time. Okay, in the case of either regression problem or classification problem. Within the classification, you have something called binary classification, multi-class classification, multi-label classification problem. And apart from this, we have something else called regression problem. Simple example is one-liner statement is to predict a numerical variable. Let's say you want to predict a numerical variable. We call that as a regression problem. So what is an example? So the classic example is housing price. I want to predict the housing price. You see the size of the square feet of the house is 1000. Let's say my house size is, let's say, 1200 square feet, and age is 2-year-old, and number of bedrooms are 3, and parking lot is there. And my algorithm has to predict the price for this given specification. Because my algorithm already I would have trained. So these are my input variable, the output variable. For this square feet, this is the price. For this square feet, this is the price. Already I trained my algorithm. This is the new data. Suddenly my manager comes and asks me, hey, Satya, you are a data scientist. You said you developed a model to predict the housing price. And he gives me some number. Hey, he throws me some number. For this square feet, for this age, for this number of bedrooms, and what is the price? Can you ask your algorithm to predict and tell what is an estimated price or expected price. When I show this to my model, trained model, it has to throw the price, predicted price, the estimated price for this house automatically. Right? So now you understood what is a regression problem, predicting the continuous response value. This is a continuous variable, right? It is a continuous variable, or it's a numerical value. You simply remember that numerical value. To predict the numerical value, we call that as a regression problem. To predict the categorical variable, we call that as a classification problem. It is as simple as that. Don't get confused. If you still say I don't understand, that means you did not concentrate here. To predict the categorical outcome variable, we call that as a classification problem. But if in the case of categorical variable, if I have more than 2 categorical values, we call that as a multi-class classification problem. When it comes to regression problem, if you want to predict the target variable, which is a numerical variable, we call that as a regression problem. For example, what is the stock price of Infosys and TCS? You want to predict the Infosys and TCS stock price for next month or next week, or after 2 months, what is the estimated stock price for Infosys and TCS? Because you have some surplus amount of money with you now, and you want to invest it. After 2 months, you need some money. You need the money back. So that time, if you sell it, these 2 stocks, you should get reasonably good profit. But before you wanted to invest on these 2 stocks, you want to be very careful, very cautious. You want to use your machine learning algorithm, predict the price, the stock price for these 2, and based on that you will decide, oh okay, after 2 months as per my machine learning algorithm I can get 50% of increase in the stock price. So in that case I can invest now. You can you can do make or break decision, right? Or you can make a go no go decision whether I can invest or not. Based on your machine learning algorithm itself you can decide. Similarly, what the price of house in a specific city, right? So you can make a prediction. See, yesterday I gave you one example. I don't know how many of you were able to understand the difference between the predictive analytics and the general data analytics. I told you yesterday, I gave you the onion example, right? Onion. So Monday, most of the Monday, right? Or last week, prior to last week, or week 1 of April month, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right? So each day, how much, what is the price of onion? We noted down 16 rupees, 20 rupees, and 22 rupees, 18 rupees, 19 rupees, something like that. So week 2 of April, we can make a guesswork with this, right? So week 1, the Monday, the prices, and if somebody is asking you, oh, what is the expected price for the third week of April? Can you tell me now? Let's say you are in the second week of April, and if somebody is asking, right, based on this you can tell. Then what is the difference between this and why should I have a machine learning model? But with this you cannot say everything. For example, if your manager gives you different number, same thing apply. Let's say if I buy 10 kg onion, right, what is the expected price? Wholesale price will be right. If you buy it in bulk, you will get different prices, right? So if the square feet is 1200 and if the age of the house is 2 or 6-year-old house, but the square feet is 1200, first initially he gives you this one, what is the estimated price, and now he tells you, hey, and if the age of the house is 6 and if the number of bedrooms are 2 and if the square feet is 1001, can you tell me what is the estimated price? With the different factors, right? With the different factors, still you will be able to predict the target outcome variable with the help of predictive analytics, with nothing but the machine learning model, right? But here somebody is asking you, right, on Monday, different varieties of onion, right? Small size onion and bigger size onion and Pakistan onion, so Karachi onion, something like that. Different size of different varieties of onion, and also right. So and what is the price, right? It is a bit challenging, but especially if you are having multiple factors. You remember ANOVA? We discussed ANOVA, analysis of variance. It is also called as analysis of factor, right? Factor. That is what I said. Factor. So analysis of variance, so in that case, right, you are having more than one independent variable. In the real world, you might be having 24 or 52 independent variables. You will be having it, right? But by increasing, so with the help of machine learning model, he can do some kind of what if analysis. What if the edge of the house is 6 and if the square feet is 1200? Can you tell me the estimated housing price, right? By you can do what if analysis when it comes to machine learning algorithm, but with this can you tell this, right? You cannot tell. So you have the historical data. Let's say the historical data tells you 1200 square feet and age of the house is 2 and this is the price, but you don't have the data for if the number of bedrooms are 3, what is the estimate? You don't have the data with you, right? But still your model will be able to find out and it will estimate the housing price. It can tell you, okay, what if there is a 1 unit increase in bedroom, how much I can expect the increase in the housing price, right? If there is a 1 unit increase in the age of the house, what is the estimated housing price. You can answer these kind of questions when you build a machine learning model, because you are building a model with multiple independent features, right? More than one factors. So that but you cannot blindly going by this. You cannot do that. If somebody is asking you with, varying combination, right, then you will not be able to answer this kind of question, right? So that is where the machine learning algorithms are very much helpful. Like how human make mistake, even the machine learning model can also make some mistake. It can make mistakes, errors will be there, right? That is where as a data scientist we need to fine tune our model. If everything is done by model, then why do they need a data scientist? We need to do data cleaning, we need to do data transformation, data normalization, everything we have to do it, right? And also you need to fit the model. And let's say your model predicts the housing price as 192k and 200k for so and so specification. Okay, it gives you the predicted value. This is the one you are going to share it with your management. Hey, for this one, and this is the price for this one, my model predicted this one. But the predicted values are somewhat closer to your actual values. Okay, actual values. If the actual and predicted values are somewhat closer, don't worry about the actual price. I will tell you what that one. Okay, what is the actual price and predicted price? If those values are somewhat closer, then you don't have error. It's something like that. See, I'll just give you one example. Okay, let's say your manager is asking you, or somebody is asking you. Let's say you are running a construction company. Hey, to build a 2-bedroom house, how many number of days are required to complete a 2-bedroom house? You will tell him to build a 2-bedroom house, you require at least 60 days time. Let's say hypothetically 60 days time. Okay, this is what you estimated. This is called your estimated effort, right? 60 days are required. But let's say I want to buy a house, and I approached you and you gave me a ballpark. Satya, it will take 60 days for me to construct a house. This is the estimated effort. Estimated effort in the sense there is a degree of uncertainty. See, you would have heard this term, right? When you call for a painter to paint your apartment, right? You will ask him, give a quote. You will say, sir, based on the size of your apartment, all the things, so 1,25,000 rupees, right? But plus or minus, 15% variation will be there, because we could not take into account of the projections. We could see some extra projections are coming from your apartment. So this is the price, but this is the estimated price, but there will be some kind of variation. 15% can go high or 15% can go down, right? So they will give you the ballpark. Ballpark is nothing but this is not the exact value. There will be some kind of variation. They will give you, if you could see the quotation, right? You can see that they would have mentioned this very clearly. Okay. Similarly, using machine learning model, we can estimate, in the case of regression problem, we can estimate the effort or the cost or return on investment, or in this case the estimated effort. This is my estimated effort. What is the actual effort? What do you mean by actual effort? Actual effort na enna artham? Let's say you contacted me. I told you, let's say Karthik, you contacted me. Satya, I want to build a 2-bedroom house. And what is the estimated effort? You said, let's say I'm telling you 60 days. And you agreed, and then you say, okay, 60 days, right? You need to finish it off. But I tell you very clearly, plus or minus 10% variation will be there. That means 10 நாள் முன்னாடியும் போகும், 10 நாள் பின்னாடியும் போகலாம், right? So in that case, you are agreeing with that, and then this is my estimated effort. And after I started constructing the building, it takes some more time. Let's say I finished it in 62 days. But how many days I promise? Estimated effort 60 days, right? But it took, this is my actual effort. So actual minus predicted. Actual minus predicted. What do you mean by predicted? The estimated effort, right? I estimated 60 days, but actually it took 62 days. What is the difference between these two? 2 days. Is this very high? Is this very high? See, if I say 60 days and if I take 122 days, then it is way too high, right? Whatever my model predicted, and end of the day, actually it took 50%, 100% more time than how my model predicted. That means my model accuracy is not good. If the difference is very less, it is good. The actual minus predicted is nothing but error. Please remember, this is very important. Actual minus predicted is nothing but the error, right? So that is the error. Supposing if I construct the 2-bedroom house, in 60 days itself, right? 60th day. The actual is 60 days and the estimated effort also 60 days, right? My model predicted also 60 days and I completed on 60 days. That means zero error. That means my model accuracy is very good. My model predicted well ahead correctly. See, take for example election here. The election also they make some prediction, right? If they say 145 places DMK will win, and that was the prediction, right? That was the prediction. After prediction, right? See, today the real count happened. After they counted, that is actual. The real count happened today. That is what the actual. As per the actual, let's say if it is 145, okay, then the prediction was accurate. Or even if there is a minor difference, 2%, 3% difference, then also it is accurate only. Hello. Yeah. Orum sharingappa. Sorry, or I got some call. Okay, and these guys. See, fine. So now you understood, right? What is actual and what is predicted and what is error. Right? So now you understood at a high level what is a regression problem, what is the classification problem. Okay, I'll give you one simple question. I'll ask you one simple question to understand, to know about your understanding around the classification problem and the regression problem. Okay. So because this is very, very important, and once again I just want to fine. Okay, I'll ask you this one. Okay, let's say I wanted to predict the return on investment. To predict the return on investment. Okay, return on investment. Okay, and also I want to predict if a customer is going to walk out of my business or not. Now tell me what kind of supervised machine learning problem these two are. So here I want to predict the return on investment. What is this? Is this a classic? Is this a numeric variable or not? What kind of variable is that?
Numeric.
Numeric. Then what kind of problem is this?
Classification.
No. You want to predict the numeric variable, right?
With single.
Regression problem. It is a regression problem. See here nobody is concentrating, right? So probably we can see each other face so that you will be able to hold your concentration here. Okay, predict the return on investment, right? So return on investment is a numeric variable, right? Saranathan, it is a numeric variable, so it is a regression problem. Predict if a customer is going to walk out of my business, or predict if a customer is going to buy, customer is going to buy a product from me or not, to buy or purchase a product or not? What kind of problem is this?
Boolean.
Huh?
Boolean.
It's a Boolean binary classification problem, right? Binary classification problem. Yes or no, right? Here also whether customer is going to walk out of yes or no. My model has to predict based on the customer's behavior whether he is going to continue the business with me or not. My model has to predict. See, nowadays the customer churn is also a major problem. All of you please concentrate, okay? The response is very, very poor. Okay, please listen very carefully. I'll just throw this example or simple case study. One of the problem posed by the or most of the companies poses one of the challenges, right? The key challenge posed by most of the companies are like customer churn, or I'll just write it, customer churn or attrition. Attrition or churn both are same, okay? That means customers are walking out of my business. I could see that lot of customers are walking out of my business. I set up a call with my office staff. I conduct a meeting with my office people or the key people, and in that call I address my concern. Man, this is the problem. Most of the customers, I could see the customer churn rate is now 32%. It is unacceptable. Can you do some analysis and tell me, how many customers walked out of my business? So, okay, data is there. With that data only, they showed me in the dashboard. This is one of the key performance indicator, KPI. Right, 32% of customer, they walked out. This is, they showed me based on the current data. Data is available with that. But I asked the same question with my team. What is the chances, or can someone tell me how many number of customers are going to walk out next month? Can you tell this one? Can you give an answer to this one?
We cannot predict that, right?
What is that?
We cannot predict that, right?
Why you cannot predict? You have the data, right? You have present and past data is there.
Okay.
With that you can predict it. Because I'm very concerned. 32% of the customers are walking. There is a very possible that it can go up to 42% next month. If I don't address this issue, I'll have to shut down my business. So I want to be predictive. I don't want to, so now what I instruct my data scientists, right? Hey guys, don't tell me how many number of people walked out of my business so far. I'm no longer interested in that. You tell me how many customers are going to walk out next month, well ahead. Proactively, you need to tell me how many customers are going to walk out next month. And I don't need only this information. In addition to that, you need to come up with the retention strategies upfront. See, it is something like, after my customers walking out of my business, let's say now my customers are completely dissatisfied with my products or services, right? Obviously they'll go and buy it from, let's say, Amazon. After my customers migrated to Amazon, once they started moving out of my business and started purchasing from Amazon, and if I run after them and go and beg them, hey, please come back to my business, it is not good, right? Why to make the customer to walk out of your business, and why you have to run after them and beg them to come and purchase from you? Before even when the customer goes out of your business, is there a way I can predict which all customers are risky customers? What do you mean by risky customers? Which all customers are more likely to leave my business next month? Because most of my customers are loyal customers. No matter you give discount or not, right? So they still purchase from your online e-commerce website. Let's assume that way, okay? But and also they are potential customers, loyal potential. That means they not only purchase from your website regularly, but also each order value carries a lot. The amount is very high. You don't want to lose the potential customers. You wanted to build a model to predict of these potential customers, which all customers are more likely to leave my business the upcoming month or in the upcoming quarter well ahead. If you know well ahead, prevention is better than cure, right? வெள்ளம் வரும் முன்னே அணை போடும் சொல்லுவாங்க, right? Before even my customers walk out of my business, I need to have a strategy in place to know well ahead which all customers are more likely to leave. I need to know first which all customers are risky, especially the potential customer. Number two is, okay, how do we retain them? Okay, out of the potential customers, my model predicted, hey, these customers are more likely to leave your business. Now immediately my marketing team or sales team, right, there's or customer relationship manager should call those potential customers proactively and find out from them, right? Give a call to them and find out from them why they are not purchasing more frequently like the way how they used to do it in the past. When you call the customer and talk to them, you will get to know their concerns. So there are some customers might say, right, you are not, whenever we come to your website, the products most of the time we could see the items are out of stock, or we ordered it in the past but they took longer time to deliver it, and also we raised for a return but he did not come and pick up the items on time. And then he said, we are not eligible for return also. So and so reason, by knowing these problems well ahead, by knowing these problems well ahead, what you can do is you can convince the customer, sorry sir, we made a mistake and henceforth it will not recur, and also we will give you, right, we understood it is the mistake is from our part, we will give you special discount for the next 2 to 3 orders whatever you make, and also we will not charge you any shipping cost, right? Come up with some retention strategy, convince them, tell them the strategies, or tell them or convince them with some offer, special offer, so that they will continue with you. Yeah, somebody saying something. What is it?
No, I was saying that if they are theoretically buying something and the price comparison between other e-commerce site, it is very high.
See, that's what the churn is very common. Satish, churn is very common. If it is as per the industry standard 18%, right? Whether it is Amazon or Flipkart, even Walmart or Target, you take any retail giant, there will be, suddenly this guy will give discount, suddenly that guy will give, there will be some kind of churn, but it should not be way beyond the industry standard. Suddenly, right, if you see something 32%, that means a serious problem is happening.
I'm asking, it can be one of the factor for these churns and sales.
Which one is the factor?
Price high.
That's what I'm saying. Price is very volatile, right? Price comparison also one of the reason. Yes, price. All the guys are smart now, right? So nowadays all the e-commerce companies, right, to sustain the momentum, they make sure the prices are more or less same. Okay, not much different, but still you can see difference. But there will be some inherent charges. See, the price may be, right, so let's say you want to buy something and it is a 18 rupees cost, right? Compared to my website, the other website, the cost is cheaper. But in my website, right, the shipping cost is less. But here the shipping cost is more. Not only the price, and they will see other factors also, right? And based on which the customers will decide. Price is also one of the key factors, obviously, right? The price, and again offer and discount, right? So suddenly they'll give 50% offer or 25%, 35% offer. This is the common thing. So this is when the churn can happen. Yeah, like you said, yeah, price also. Compared to all the other websites, if my prices are very high, obviously, let's take this example, ideal case scenario. My price also is somewhat on par with my competitor's price, but still churn is 32%. What is the reason? The industry standard is 18%. Everywhere churn will be there, but here it is 32%, right? My business, suddenly I could see 32%. That means though the price are same compared to my competitors, still people are not buying from me. Maybe my competitor is giving some special offer, or there is some problem with the services, whatever we do it to the customer. They are not delivering it on time, or we are not taking care of the customer's concern. The potential customer, they keep on order it, right? So of late they could pose issues like we are not delivering it on time. That is one issue. Other issues are like returns. They want to return. So, we are giving an option like, return is also available, something like that, right? So within 10 days, if they want to return it. Yes, and also sometimes what happens when we ship the items, it will not be in the proper condition. Probably the item would have broken. When they raise a complaint, you need to attend it on time. Due to various other reason also, the churn can happen more. Say I ordered an iPhone, it has broken. They delivered a broken iPhone. Do you think I'm happy? I will call the customer support and nobody is responding. I've been keep calling for 10 days, and finally they say it's not possible because the return policy is only for 10 days. It is crossed more than 10 days, hence we cannot take care. I'm just giving a simple example, okay? Actually warranty and all is there, but still, right? So they say return policy, return is not. It is actually the problem from the support side, right? So in that case, where is the problem? So if this is a problem, contact the customer. You tell them, right? Hey, sorry, we will give the replacement. Please, my person, I will send the person tomorrow. Promptly go and address the problem then and there. Improve your service quality, right? So by doing that, so in this case, what is the problem that we are trying to predict? The first step is I wanted to predict which all customers are going to. I need to find out which all customers are more likely to leave my business. How do I know that? There is no magic formula is available. Using my machine learning algorithm, with the historical data, I'm going to make a prediction. So my model already learned the pattern. These customers order the items more frequently in the past, but nowadays they are, for the last 2 months or 3 months, they are not ordering like the way of. These are the patterns learned by model while we train the model using the historical data. Right? With that trained knowledge, it can predict, hey, yes or no. If it flags a customer as yes, that means that customer is going to leave my business. If it flags so-and-so customers as NN, that means these customers are not going to leave my business. But again, this customer is my model predicted, yes, this customer is more likely to leave your business. And again, I am going to check whether it's a potential or customer or not. Some customers, even we wanted to leave them because they are all headaches customer, right? They keep order the item, but they keep return the item intentionally, right? So those kind of customers we wanted to get rid of. But there are some genuine customers, we don't want to lose them. But again, you need to check whether my model predicted. See, my model was able to say so-and-so customers are more likely to leave my business. Next step is we need to use our common sense, check whether these customers are really potential customers. Oh, if they are really potential customers, next step is call them, find out from them what is their concern. The first step is my model has to predict what? Yes or no. Yes is 1, 0 is no, right? If my model predict and assign a label as 1 for so-and-so customer, right, that means those customers are more likely to leave my business. Then, so the first step is it will help us to put a spotlight on the risky customers. These customers are risky customers. They can walk out your business anytime. So the next step is you need to call them and come up with some various returns. See, like in the case of HR in our company, what do they do? If they get to know well ahead, right? Let's say if our manager get to know we are going to leave the organization, right? So he will call us and tell, hey, I just heard that you are planning to leave the company. Can we know what is your reason? See, some cases it will be very genuine. So I can say, hey, Raj, it is already 10 years here with the same company. It is too long to stay here. Okay, that is a reasonable thing. Okay, and some people they say, no, I wanted to move to technology stream. I don't want to be in the managerial stream. I want to be a technological stream. But here it will take longer time for me to get into technological stream. So what they write, they see the candidate or the associate's past performance and current performance, based on which we will decide, right, whether we can retain him or not. If he is really an asset to the organization, we say we'll convince him and retain them. Hey, we will take care of your thing. If his salary is the only concern, we'll speak to the management. We'll make sure that we'll give the salary on par with the industry standard. Then the chances are high you are not going to lose your potential staff. Same thing is applicable in business also. We don't want to miss the potential customer. So how will you know well ahead, right? That is where the machine learning algorithm comes into picture. This is a prediction problem. It's a classification. It is a classification problem. Your model, all you need to do is just throw the customers, and your model has to predict the labeled output value, right? Yes or no, it has to predict. But if it is a numerical problem, your model has to predict, okay. So let's say if I want to predict how many number of items I can sold across various category. I want to do some kind of forecasting. So how many number of units I want to predict. That is the regression problem. Numeric, see, if you want to, simple thing here, if you want to predict the numerical variable, it's called regression problem. If you predict the categorical variable, it is called your classification problem. As simple as that. Right, so so what I would suggest, right, if I start with the linear regression, because it requires at least 1.5 hour time continuously, I need to explain this one in detail. We will continue from next weekend, okay, the linear regression part, okay. So the plan is to next weekend we'll complete the linear regression whole week, the Saturday and Sunday, because you are completely new one to the machine learning algorithm. When I spend more time on the linear regression this weekend, and next weekend classification problem, logistic regression, right? So 2 days if I take, right, followed by these 2 weekends, the rest of the topics are very algorithms are very simple, okay. And there are some techniques, I will tell you that one, so that you will be able to understand how the rest of the machine learning algorithm also works, okay. So I'll explain you in detail next weekend. But first 2 algorithms, if I take more time to explain you the entire linear regression model and logistic regression model, once you understand that, understanding the rest of the machine learning algorithm very simple. But make sure that you are not getting distracted even 1 minute, right? So that's the reason why what we will do is reasonably we will take 10 minutes break, right? And after 10 minutes, right, concentrate. If you concentrate, you don't have to watch multiple videos, multiple blogs, right? Because we spent years and years of time to implement these algorithms. We posed a lot of issues. We made a lot of mistakes, and we were corrected by our American customers, right? And a lot of escalations happened. From that we learned. So that you don't have to spend a lot of time in going through multiple website, all the things, okay. So don't miss next week sessions. But so far whatever I covered, it's all very basic thing. Try to understand all these things very clearly, okay. See here, going back to this one, I told you, right, my model has to predict. See, in this case, in the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, right, so we train this model or the kit with both the input and output variable. In the case of supervised machine learning algorithm, you need to have the labeled output variable, right? You don't have the labeled output data, then you cannot train your model. Supervised machine learning model requires the labeled data. Okay, you trained your model, but if you show image, right, in this case, if you show an image which your algorithm never seen, right, it might tend to make a mistake. Or your algorithm should still correctly say by seeing this image, this is an elephant only. See, during the training time, my model or this kid did not see an elephant with this tusk and the kombu irukra mari elephant paakala inga, right? But if I still show this elephant which has a tusk, right? Still my model should correctly predict this is elephant. That means my model has generalized very well. This is called generalization. Okay, my model should generalize very well. But still, you need to train your algorithm with multiple images when it comes to image classification, or even the case of regression problem. You need to train your model with multiple huge amount of data so that the prediction accuracy will be very good.
AWS part, right? You showed one image and it classified wheels, cars, humans, and all of these. That comes under supervised learning, right?
Yes, that is also sort of supervised machine. Even see we do some kind of image classification, everything extensively in deep learning. Okay, deep learning is the algorithms, especially the convolutional neural network, is very robust one, using which only we do some kind of image classification and all. Okay, but there are some algorithm machine learning still we can do the classification, but the accuracy is not that good, and again the performance is not that good. If you have huge volume of data, then image classification, everything, right, you have to use deep learning algorithm only. In the deep learning also you have something called supervised, unsupervised. Obviously the classification also falls under supervised machine learning algorithm only, even in the case of deep learning algorithm.
Okay.
Fine, all right,
Thank you.
we will continue next weekend. Okay, fine, good night, take care.